Hey, HannahMouse1 here. Welcome to another devlog for A Farmer's Life, the farming game that I'm making in Scratch. In this video, I'll be kicking off the new build of the game with a new location, the shipping depot. This is where you'll be able to trade large quantities of crops, animal products, fish, etc. for exotic seeds and produce that you can't otherwise obtain from local shops. I started by making the icon for the shipping depot on the map. I wanted it to look quite industrial, with a warehouse and a crane surrounded by what are supposed to be shipping containers, although at such a tiny scale, I'm not sure how obvious it is that that's what the colourful rectangles are meant to be. I was careful to use colours pulled from other map icons for the sake of a cohesive colour palette, and I think that it comes out looking pretty good. And I made a name label for when this is moused over before coding it so that the icon appears on the map if the shipping depot is built. Speaking of which, let's make it so you can build the darn thing, shall we? I went over to the hardware store sprite and added a new page to the build menu. This required a little code, although the modular state of how I'd set this up meant that this was minimal, and otherwise it was just a lot of art, an icon for the depot with some labels for the cost and purpose of the building, as well as the UI to display what items and how many of these items you need to have in order to build it. I then made it so that clicking build builds the building if the player can afford it and has all the right items, and I also took the opportunity to patch a couple of bugs with the build page that I found, like things highlighting when moused over that shouldn't, or the money shake effect if the player can't afford a building not working properly. And with all that sorted, I spent some time drawing the background for the shipping depot. I designed this to look like a computer, as though you're receiving this trade offer over the web, and behind it I added some general desk clutter like a plant pot and some stationery. I also coloured the back wall to look like it's made of wooden paneling. I also had to make some UI for the page. I wasn't sure what I would need, so you might see me draw some things that I don't wind up using, but in terms of the things that stuck, I created name titles and logos for a few different companies that can request trades from you. They're named pretty generically, with a couple being suggestions from my Discord, and I only added 5 for now. It won't make any difference to gameplay, it's just a bit of world building. And you might notice that I'm using a different style of lettering to everywhere else in the game. This was entirely intentional. It's to fit with the digital style of the page, as though the computer within the game is displaying this specific font. It was not an oversight on my part, it is intentional. I also had to recolor any items that can be requested in a tray to fit on this page, and I created a separate sprite for each that indicates if the sprite is moused over with a box around it, as the usual highlight method that I had been using to indicate a mouse over looks out of place in this case. I also created buttons to submit a trade if you have the items, as well as one to discard the current trade, and I needed to draw in a sprite for each number in the style of the page so I can use this to display how many of each item is being requested. Then I went through and coded in the bulk of the page's functionality. I set it up so that all of the right clones appear in the right places, and once I had the shell of the page looking good, I added the code to generate all the information that a trade request would need to a list. This included which company the request comes from and what 3 items are being requested in what quantity. Given this information, I could get the clones for the produce to switch to the correct items and could code it in so that the numbers displayed with the requested value. I made it so that the discard button generates a new order, and that the send button only does so if you have any items, removing said items from the inventory. One thing I didn't do was to give the player any reward for the trade just now, because this will require me adding in quite a lot of new items, and I'm going to sort out all of that in the next devlog. But otherwise, I also got the UI to display how many of a requested item you currently possess when you mouse over them, and I also decided to make it so that the same type of item could not be requested twice in a single order. I also added in 5 new trade related upgrades. Each of these needed an icon, a version of the icon ticked out, a description, and mouse over name label. I created the header for a new research tab to contain any upgrades pertaining to the shipping depot. The first upgrade, bulk buying, creates a chance for trade requests to be bigger, while the other 4 unlock new categories of trade, so to speak. So the first, Apple Pay, unlocks trade requests for fruit, Big Farmer unlocks requests for tier 2 crops, Chicken Trade for animal products, and We Buy Any Carp for fish. And yes, I did have some fun with the names on these ones. I got the trade upgrade tab to generate in as appropriate with all of the correct icons on the page, and I added the new upgrades to the upgrade index list. I sorted out making it so that these upgrades become available if the shipping depot is built, and for every upgrade except bulk buying, if whatever the unlock request is for is also unlocked. Presumably they will be. The cost of the shipping depot is so high that the odds of you building it before the barns say are slim, but if something's possible in a game, someone's gonna do it. And I went through and actually implemented the functionality behind each upgrade. I set it up so that all the items in a trade are in the same category, so that if the first item request is, for example, a fish, then the others will also be a fish. If it's a tier 2 crop, so will therefore the others be. It makes the orders feel less completely random. And I also made it so that based on the rarity of the item type requested, the less of them are asked for. So tier 1 crops are requested in the highest quantities, with fish or tier 2 crops being ordered in smaller amounts. And finally, I created a backing track for the shipping depot in soundtrack. Because of the digital computer based nature of the page, I wanted it to sound 8-bit and video gamey, so I used that style of synth for the main line of the song, and under that I added a rhythmic clickety-clack sound to try and invoke the sound of like a conveyor belt that you might find in a warehouse. When I was satisfied, I added it into the music manager so that it can play when the shipping depot page is open, and I also had to add it to the gramophone that I added in the last update. And that's all I got done for this week, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, it lets me know to see more of. Join the Discord, link down below, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!